What if I told you that one of history's greatest minds discovered something so strange, so unsettling, that he spent the rest of his life trying to prove it was wrong? And it turned out he was right about the mystery but wrong about the conclusion? This is a story about Albert Einstein, a thought experiment he never wanted to be famous for, and a piece of reality that physicists ignored for almost 30 years because, frankly, it scared them. Here's the misconception most people walk around with. They think Einstein invented quantum mechanics, or at least helped build it, and then happily moved on to relativity. That's true, partly. He won his Nobel Prize not for relativity, but for explaining the photoelectric effect, one of the founding pillars of quantum theory. But here's what most people don't know. Einstein spent the last 3 decades of his life at war with the very theory he helped create. Not because he didn't understand it, because he understood it too well. And what he saw inside it terrified him. Let's set the scene. It's 1935. Einstein is at Princeton, sharing an office with two younger physicists, Boris Podolsky and Nathan Rosen. Quantum mechanics, by this point, has become wildly successful. It predicts the behavior of atoms, electrons, and light with stunning precision. But Einstein has a problem with it. Not a calculation problem, a philosophical one. And to explain that problem, he and his colleagues dream up a thought experiment so elegant, so deceptively simple, that it would take physics nearly 30 years to catch up with its implications. Imagine you have a pair of particles that are created together in the same instant from the same event, like two siblings born from a single explosion. Quantum mechanics says that before you measure them, these particles don't have fixed, definite properties. They exist in something called a superposition, a haze of possibilities. Only when you measure one of them does it collapse into a definite state. Now here's the strange part. Once these two particles are entangled, that's the technical word, entangled, measuring one of them instantly determines the property of the other, no matter how far apart they are. Not a fast signal, not nearly instant. Instant. Even if one particle is on Earth and the other is on the far side of the galaxy. Einstein looked at this and said, "That's absurd." He gave it a nickname that has survived to this day. He called it spooky action at a distance. And to him, spooky wasn't a compliment. It was an accusation. Here's why it bothered him so deeply. Einstein had just spent 20 years building special and general relativity on one sacred rule. Nothing in this universe travels faster than the speed of light. Light speed isn't just a speed limit for objects. It's the speed limit for information, for cause and effect itself. If I do something here, the universe takes time to tell you about it over there. That's not a technological limitation we'll one day engineer around. Einstein showed it's baked into the fabric of space and time itself. So when quantum mechanics seemed to suggest that measuring one particle could instantaneously affect another particle light years away, Einstein heard alarm bells. To him, this wasn't a strange new feature of reality. It was a sign that quantum mechanics was incomplete, that it was missing something. So what was the missing piece Einstein proposed? He suspected that entangled particles weren't actually undefined before measurement. He thought they secretly carried hidden information from the moment they were created, like two sealed envelopes mailed from the same address, each already containing a fixed, predetermined answer, just waiting to be opened. In his mind, quantum mechanics wasn't wrong exactly. It was just an incomplete description, like reading a weather report that only gives you probabilities because nobody bothered to check the actual barometric pressure. He called these hidden answers local hidden variables. Local, meaning no spooky instant communication needed, because the answer was decided long before, at the moment the particles were born. It's a beautiful idea. It rescues common sense. It rescues the universe from looking insane. And for decades, this argument between Einstein and Niels Bohr, the chief defender of standard quantum theory, was treated as a kind of unsolvable philosophical disagreement, the kind physicists shrugged at and moved on from, because there seemed to be no way to actually test it. Both views predicted the same experimental outcomes. It looked like an argument you could never settle experimentally, purely a debate about the nature of reality, fascinating but practically useless. And so it sat there, mostly ignored, for nearly 30 years, until a physicist named John Stuart Bell did something nobody expected. In 1964, working almost alone, sidelined from mainstream academic physics at the time, Bell found a way to turn Einstein's philosophical objection into a number. He devised what's now called Bell's theorem, a mathematical proof showing that if Einstein's hidden variables existed, the results of certain entanglement experiments would have to fall below a specific statistical threshold. But if quantum mechanics was right, if spooky action was real, the results would break that threshold. This was no longer philosophy. This was a number you could measure in a lab. It took years for the technology to catch up, but eventually, scientists like John Clauser, Alain Aspect, and later Anton Zeilinger ran the experiments. And the universe answered. The hidden variable threshold was broken, again and again, with overwhelming statistical certainty. Einstein's intuition about completeness, that something deeper was hiding behind quantum randomness, was wrong. There were no sealed envelopes mailed in advance. The particles really were undefined until measured. The entanglement really was as strange as Bohr always said. In 2022, this body of work, turning Einstein's discarded thought experiment into a measurable, repeatedly confirmed feature of nature, won the Nobel Prize in Physics. So here's the twist, and it's the part that makes this story so satisfying. Einstein was wrong about his proposed fix, but he was right that there was something deeply strange buried in quantum mechanics worth taking seriously. Something his contemporaries were content to wave away with shrugs and slogans like, "Don't ask, just calculate." His objection forced physics to ask a question precise enough to actually test. Without Einstein's stubborn discomfort, Bell's theorem might never have existed. The missing piece wasn't a hidden variable. The missing piece was the courage to take a paradox seriously enough to make it testable. Now, let's bring in Feynman, because Feynman had a particular gift. He could look at something everyone else found mystical and strip it down to its bare mechanical bones, often making it sound simpler and stranger at the same time. Feynman loved quantum mechanics precisely because it refused to be intuitive. He famously said that if you think you understand quantum mechanics, you don't understand quantum mechanics. He wasn't being cute. He meant it as a warning against false comfort, the same false comfort Einstein had been chasing his whole life. Feynman's way of explaining entanglement strips away the mysticism without losing the strangeness. Picture two gloves, a left and a right, packed into two separate boxes and mailed to opposite sides of the world. You open one box and find the left glove. Instantly, you know the other box contains the right glove. Not because some signal traveled across the planet, but because the information was already fixed back when the gloves were packed. That's the classical Einstein-style explanation, and it makes perfect sense. But quantum entanglement isn't like gloves in boxes. It's more like this. Imagine the gloves aren't decided yet when they're packed. Imagine that until someone actually opens a box, each glove exists as a genuine 50-50 blur. Not unknown to us, but undetermined, full stop, with no answer to find even in principle. The moment you open one box and a left glove appears, the other box, instantly, no matter the distance, becomes guaranteed to produce a right glove. Feynman's brilliance was in admitting plainly, this isn't a flaw in our knowledge. It's not that we're ignorant of a hidden answer sitting in the box. The answer genuinely doesn't exist until the moment of measurement. And there is no good, comforting classical story for why that's true. You just have to accept that the universe runs on rules different from the ones your intuition was built for. This is where the deepest misconception about quantum mechanics needs busting. People imagine entanglement means information is being sent faster than light, which would shatter relativity. It doesn't, and here's the part that almost nobody explains clearly enough. You can't actually use entanglement to send a message instantly. Each individual measurement on your end still looks like pure randomness. 50% left glove, 50% right glove, no pattern, nothing you could decode. It's only when you later compare notes with the person on the other side of the planet, through an ordinary, light-speed limited phone call or email, that the correlation becomes visible. The connection is real. The information transfer that could let you exploit it usefully and instantly is not. Relativity survives, fully intact, sitting right next to this bizarre instantaneous correlation, like two truths that shouldn't fit together but somehow do. This is the actual missing piece worth dwelling on. Not a hidden variable, but a hidden boundary in how the universe lets information move. Entanglement reveals that correlation and communication are not the same thing. Two particles can be correlated across galactic distances without anything traveling between them at all. Causation, in the way we normally picture it, one thing pushing or signaling another, simply isn't what's happening. The particles aren't talking to each other. They're better described as two faces of a single mathematical object that happens to be spread out across space. Distance, in this very specific sense, becomes almost an illusion layered on top of something more unified underneath. This isn't just philosophy for physicists to argue about over coffee anymore. It's engineering now. Quantum entanglement is the working principle behind quantum cryptography, where any attempt to eavesdrop on an entangled signal actually disturbs the correlation in a detectable way, making certain kinds of communication provably tamper-evident. Something classical physics can't offer. It's the foundation of quantum computing, where entangled particles, called qubits, can represent vast combinations of states simultaneously, potentially solving problems that would take classical computers longer than the age of the universe. Companies and governments are racing to build these systems right now, in 2026, based directly on the exact phenomenon Einstein dismissed as too spooky to be real. And it doesn't stop at laboratories. The same quantum strangeness that powers entanglement experiments is quietly running underneath technologies you already rely on. GPS satellites have to correct for relativistic time dilation, Einstein's relativity at work, while atomic clocks, which define the precise ticking those satellites depend on, function because of quantum transitions inside atoms, the same quantum framework Einstein distrusted. Relativity and quantum mechanics, the two theories Einstein spent his life trying to reconcile and never could, sit stitched together inside the phone in your pocket every single time it tells you which street to turn down. So why does this story matter, beyond the physics trivia? Because it's a story about the difference between being right and being useful. Einstein was, in the narrowest sense, wrong. There were no hidden variables waiting to be discovered, but his wrongness was productive. It was specific enough, rigorous enough, uncomfortable enough that it forced the next generation to build a sharper question, and that sharper question eventually got answered in the most concrete way science allows. In a lab, with photons, with statistics, with a Nobel Prize. Bohr's quantum mechanics survived, not because Einstein gave up, but because Einstein refused to. There's a lesson buried in this that has nothing to do with physics, and everything to do with how discovery actually works. The thing that gets ignored isn't always the wrong idea. Sometimes it's the inconvenient question nobody wants to sit with, because sitting with it threatens to unravel something that already works well enough on paper. Quantum mechanics worked. The equations matched the experiments. Nobody needed to ask why entangled particles behaved the way they did, until someone too stubborn to let it go forced the issue. So the next time you glance at your phone and watch the little blue dot crawl down a map, somewhere underneath that simple convenience is a buried argument between two of the greatest scientific minds who ever lived, one of whom never lived to see himself proven wrong about the cure, even as the universe quietly confirmed he was right about the disease. The world isn't made of sealed envelopes with answers already written inside. It's stranger than that. Particles separated by impossible distances can be linked in ways that have no description in the language of everyday cause and effect. And yet nothing about that breaks the speed of light, or the order of events, or the careful architecture of relativity built to protect them. Two seemingly contradictory truths, both fully real, both fully necessary, sitting together at the foundation of everything. And the only reason we know that for certain is because one man refused to accept spooky as a final answer and was brave enough to be wrong out loud, in public, for 30 years, until the universe finally settled the argument itself.